Gentlemen, please welcome USGLC board member Beverly Bashor.
Good afternoon. Please continue enjoy the food, and I'm just going to get started. I'm Beverly Bashor. I serve as the Assistant General Counsel at Compassion International. I am honored to join you all today as a USGLC board member. We're gathered today as our nation approaches its 250th anniversary, giving us the opportunity to reflect not only on America's strength and prosperity, but on the values that have defined our leadership in the world for generations. From life-saving initiatives like PEPFAR and the President's Malaria Initiative to long-standing food security programs like Food for Peace, America's engagement abroad has saved lives, strengthened communities, and advanced our own security and prosperity here at home. Today is both the celebration of America's legacy and a conversation about how we continue leading with purpose, compassion, and strength for generations to come. Joining us for this milestone conversation are David Beasley, who served the state of South Carolina as its 113th governor before leading the World Food Program from 2017 to 2023. Dr. Bill Steiger is the Chief Executive Officer at Malaria No More and previously served in leadership roles at HHS and at USAA during the first Trump administration. Maggie Dougherty is the Vice President of North American Advocacy for the Eleanor Crook Foundation, where she leads the foundation's advocacy efforts across the United States and Canada to end global malnutrition and hunger. Dr. Jenelle Krishnamoorthy brings deep expertise in domestic and global health policy to her role as Senior Vice President and Head of Global Policy and Public Affairs for Merck, and also serves on USGLC's Board of Directors. And to moderate our conversation, Sean Callahan, President and CEO of Catholic Relief Services and co-chair of USGLC. Before we welcome our distinguished panel to the stage, I invite you to turn your attention to the screen. As we look ahead to the next 250 years of American leadership, we also take a moment to reflect on 30 years of USGLC and all that we've accomplished together. Thank you.
The Center for U.S. Global Engagement launched our effort.
The Global Leadership Campaign is simply indispensable.
Promoting global stability, saving lives, opening markets, investing in people, creating jobs.
Driving the discussion about development and diplomacy.
A critical space in the foreign policy arena.
The full strength of America.
I feel much safer for my grandchildren if the leading country in the world is called the United States of America.
You bring together the private sector, the defense community, the diplomacy and the development communities, the faith and volunteerism and service communities.
We were bipartisan even before it was cool.
While you may be strange bedfellows, the world is a much better place with your support.
I don't think you have ever been more important.
This is America's best interest.
It makes us safer, and it develops markets for American products.
The biggest mistake of all for America is to withdraw.
Ask anyone in the military.
30 years in the Air Force. Don't remember ever hearing, are you a Republican or are you a Democrat?
None of us wants to send our men and women to war if we don't have to.
Heck no, we're not cutting our development aid. That puts soldiers in there.
It didn't surprise me in the least to see a lot of other retired generals and flags come into this organization.
Like-minded individuals who realize that the military can't go it alone.
It takes a lot to get me back to Washington.
I know, and you know what?
And PEPFAR is it.
So let's talk about this U.S. Global Leadership Coalition.
The U.S. Global Leadership Coalition,
which advocates for strong U.S. global leadership. Unrest and poverty, thousands of miles away, can actually have a direct impact on lives right here in Utah.
Trade supports 1.4 million jobs in Pennsylvania.
The U.S. Global Leadership Coalition.
Heartland Summit happened today in Sioux City.
Allegheny County. Northeast Florida.
Central Oklahoma.
Leaders in foreign policy and global affairs joined together for a summit today at Wilmington's.
Louisville yesterday.
Today in Kalamazoo.
125 political, business, and community leaders,
all working towards diplomacy policies that keep America a global leader.
This isn't charity. This is jobs in South Georgia.
What USGLC has done for years and is doing in this moment is so critical.
We use you every way we can on the Hill for our common goals.
You all are the face of America.
You were one of the first groups that we reached out to.
America First is not America alone, and certainly not isolationism.
Because there are billions of people that are counting on America being America.
We can use U.S. innovation to solve these problems.
And I'm a USGLC
Next Gen Global Leader.
We are farmers for prosperity.
I'm a veteran for smart power.
I'm a veteran for smart power.
If we want a better future for our kids and grandkids, American retreat is not an option.
Because when America leads, the world is safer, freedom is stronger, and the future is brighter.
Thank you, all of you, for joining us here today. Please keep eating, and we'll jump right into our conversation. As you all know, this is about the shining light on the hill, and we're going to talk about American ingenuity, impact, and innovation. And I've got a great panel here from the fields of global health and food security. So we're going to jump right in. David, I'd like to start with you, if you don't mind, and want to focus in on America has been ingenious in many of the things that it's done. When you look back, the Marshall Plan and the development that we did after World War II, and the importance that has made in history, and then we look after that at the Peace Corps and at PEPFAR and things like that, the United States has really stepped up. President Eisenhower had this idea, and then it was put into place by President Kennedy. And then you led the organization, and it's been operating for 65 years. Can you talk about the U.S. idea of introducing the World Food Program?
It started from this young man, farmer in northwest Kansas, named Peter O'Brien, who went to the Farm Bureau. Farm Bureau goes to the U.S. Senator there. The U.S. Senator goes to Eisenhower, Kansas boy, and next thing you know, we've got food for peace. And roll the tape forward. I know when I took over, we were about a $5 to $6 billion operation. And when I left, it was a $14 billion operation. We were stabilizing populations around the world, giving hope to people all over the world, and truly saving taxpayers in America a lot of money because we were stabilizing populations. And to see what's happening today just breaks my heart. I mean, it's absolutely catastrophic. Not just people are dying, but we aren't even beginning to see the devastation that's taking place. And when America leads on that city on the top of a hill, the world responds, the world looks to America. And, that famous quote that some say from Alexis de Tocqueville, America's great because America's good. If America ever ceases to be good, America will cease to be great. And right now, we're not being the good nation that the world looks to. And we got to get that back on track. And I'm hopeful. I really am. I think there's enough people in America. I know when I'm out there speaking across America, from the most left or the most right wing, when I explain effective strategic international aid and what it does and how we do it, they're all 100% for it. So we've got to get out there. I mean, y'all have heard me talk about this before. When I joined the United Nations as a leader in 2017, I didn't talk the language. And I caught a lot of grief about that for the first 6 months. You shouldn't say it that way. I'm like, you say it your way, and I'll say it my way, and we'll see at the end of the year who's got the most money. And I remember Filippo Grandi and a couple of them was like, we're playing your videos at our communications teams. This is how to say it. But when you say it in the way that people understand, because we are facing a crisis right now, it's heartbreaking, and not even to get into the fact that 20, 25 years from now, when the world's population is going to be 10 billion people, we've got to get our act together, and we've got solutions out there. And so anyway, it's wonderful. And this is what I love about this gathering, because it brings D's and R's, left and right, all of us together, because we are Americans who believe in patriotism, and we believe in loving our neighbor, being that city on the top of a hill, shining a light for everyone.
Terrific. Thank you, Governor. Bill, I'd like to go to you next. And you were in the Bush administration during 9/11, and you were in HHS at the head of global health. And at that point, there could have been an opportunity for us to step back. But we didn't step back. We did an innovation called PEPFAR, which changed the paradigm of how we do humanitarian assistance and health assistance around the world. Could you describe the process that went into defining PEPFAR?
Sure. It's really a story about American ingenuity and leadership and vision, starting with science. It was American scientists and American private sector companies and their partners who invented the drugs that made it possible for us to treat HIV. That was done largely with American tax dollars through our National Institutes of Health, but always in cooperation with private partners. That made it possible to do something about HIV by the beginning of this century. But that doesn't, when we know something's possible, it doesn't always mean that we do something about it. So it took another couple of parts of a coalition to build, to take the scientific possibilities and make them into reality. And that coalition had 4 parts. The first were people who became very concerned about HIV internationally as a security risk. Whole societies were at the risk of falling apart when teachers and security officials and government officials and the commercial sector were all at risk of dying off. That posed a demonstrable risk to American security, especially in sub-Saharan Africa. Others were on maybe the left-hand side of the spectrum, concerned about human rights. They came out of the activist community around HIV here in the United States and believed we needed to do something about that to be fair in the rest of the world. There are yet others who looked at this as a scientific and medical problem in the academic community, in the medical community. We could do something, we should do something with the tools that we had. And the last, and I would argue really key component, was a faith-based coalition of all sorts, Catholic and Protestant, Jewish and Muslim, from all across the country and around the world, who looked at this as a moral imperative, that anyone who cared about life and dignity of the human person saw that the tragedy that was unfolding in Africa was something we could and should do something about. That coalition allowed the president to take the tools and technology we had and apply them in a way and at a scale that had never been thought possible before.
And it's now been documented that over 26 million lives have been saved because of the President's Emergency Program for AIDS Relief.
That's right. It's an incredible achievement.
Jenelle, as we keep moving on innovation, and thinking about one of the big moves was with philanthropy. And we had the Rockefeller Foundation, the Gates Foundation, and they were looking at vaccinations and the number of lives that has saved of little children around the world, and the importance that we care about the children around the world. Merck was one of the private partners in that President Clinton called up at the time when Gavi was being formed. Can you talk a little bit about the ingenuity in forming Gavi and how Merck has played a role in that?
Absolutely. Thank you, Sean. And I just want to say thank you to all of you, because we're going to need you. So just please eat up, power up. And, as Merck, it's really hard to develop those medicines and vaccines. We hope, every 10 years we're coming up with one. But that's really only the first step. If people are not getting access to these medicines and vaccines, then so what, right? And Gavi, when we got the call, we wanted to be a founding member because they are ensuring access and preventing infectious disease, preventing deaths, and we wanted to be part of that. And so we have been partnering with them over the years, and they have shown that for America and U.S. companies, that we can be true leaders, as Bill and the governor is saying, and that is helping as we're looking at an Ebola outbreak right now, ensuring those infectious disease are not coming to America, ensuring our economic prosperity, and then also ensuring health security. As you may hear, I'm heartened, but Congress did appropriate money for Gavi, but it's been hung up for right now. And so the money is not getting to Gavi to be able to deliver access to those vaccines. So really pleased that because of a lot of your advocacy and USGLC, that there are conversations with the Hill and with the administration, but we're not there yet. And so I'm looking forward to hearing how your impactful conversations occur tomorrow.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Maggie, now to you. You've served in Congress. You've been a member of the Trump administration. Now you're in philanthropy. And I understand you're getting married soon as well.
Yes.
Surprise, everyone. And Maggie also worked for who was then Senator Marco Rubio as a staff member. So I expected someone who was going to be very old, and she's still only 25 and done so many things with her life. Maggie, you talk about when you were in Congress and some of the ingenuity that occurred, the Water Act for the world, Girls Count Act, Electrify Africa, the global food security. There have been many things that are made in America. Can you say what the top 2 or 3 made in America programs that you think have lasting impact?
Yes, thank you so much. And thank you for mentioning the Girls Count Act, because that was actually the first law that I worked on and passed with Senator Rubio. So really excited to talk about initiatives. And I think it's so amazing what all of you are doing, because my time in the Senate, bipartisanship is the most important part, and that's what makes things lasting. And so you can have an initiative on the left or the right, but you need to have buy-in from both parties in order for things to go forward. And so all of the laws that you listed, that's how it starts in the beginning and grows. And that way, administrations come and go, but these laws, most of the time, some of them have expiration dates, last forever. One of the initiatives that is bipartisan and the Eleanor Crook Foundation has been working on and Congress has been supporting has to do with prenatal vitamins. In particular, there's a prenatal vitamin. I brought props. Multiple micronutrient supplement. It's a mouthful, so we call it MMS for short. And so as Americans, most of us are familiar with prenatal vitamins, but much of the world does not have access to prenatal vitamins, or specifically this prenatal vitamin, which is made in the United States. There is a factory in New York, and it's actually supported by an American philanthropist, the Crook Family Foundation. And by their support, they've saved, with these prenatal vitamins, MMS, over 75 million women around the world. And why are thank you. And why are prenatal vitamins so important? It's because without prenatal vitamins, women that do not have proper health care, do not have proper access to food, prenatal vitamins prevent stunting, small births, stillbirths. And so these are one of the innovations that is made in America, supported by Americans, and saving lives all around the world.
Fantastic. Thank you.
I think we need to have a website where to send gifts to. For the wedding.
David, back to you on an issue related to farming, because I know how important that is to you. And 50 years before you received the Nobel Prize with the World Food Program, Norman Borlaug, an agronomist and American, received the Nobel Peace Prize for the great work that he did with the Green Revolution and moving that forward. And you were quoted when you received the Nobel Peace Prize as saying that food security is a pathway to peace, and that we can develop ourselves by helping others in these different areas. Could you talk a little bit about how you see the American farmer? You came from Lamar, South Carolina, Governor. You grew up on a small farm. How do the farmers in the United States really protect food security for people around the world?
Farming in the United States has set the stage for global successes in agricultural production. If you think about 50, 60, 70 years ago, the harvest and yield per acre today is double what it was 50 years ago. And so that's the American farmer, the ingenuity, all the research that's taking place. And I do believe AI AI is an exciting moment in world history. And as I said in a commencement address I gave last week, it's like, we're going to be able to get so much higher quality furniture for the house, much less cost, but the house burns down. It's scary as hell. But the seeds, the fertilizers that are going to be coming on the scene, and the rate by which we can produce new seeds that produce better, effective in dry conditions and all these other factors, it really is exciting. When I think about 200 years ago, when the world population was 1.1 billion, 85 to 95% of the people on planet Earth were in extreme poverty. So today it's less than 9%. So look how far we've come. I actually believe that even with 10 billion people, if our ingenuity in using AI and integrating it properly, strategically, in all the facets of farming, of the whole spectrum, I believe that we will be able to feed every human being on the planet if we don't burn ourselves down in the meantime, which is a whole other issue. But the American farmer, and we're seeing the number of American farmers decrease, which is very concerning. Particularly the smallholder farmers, not to get into the Africa smallholder farmer where 75, 80% of all consumption is from them, which is going to be huge when they get better, as they're getting better seeds and better fertilizers in these drought conditions like in the Sahel and many other places. But the American farmer, I mean, that's the heartbeat of America. And of course, they're struggling right now, which is a whole other issue in itself. And I'm very, very concerned. And I know Dan is concerned about the American farmer right now, what we're facing. But we cannot turn our back on the American farmer and the research that's critical to the future of our planet. Period. End of story. It's that simple.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Maggie, back to you. When we look at impact, David just talked about the impact that the American farmers have had. The impact on child nutrition. The Eleanor Cook Foundation has been laser focused on child nutrition. And they have this strangely named substance that some people sometimes call plumpy nut, but others call it RUTF. Could you tell us what is this impactful innovation?
Yes. Well, first, let's start with the problem. When you're talking about child malnutrition, right now there's about 45 million children around the world that are suffering from what we call wasting. So wasting is a technical term. You guys are probably more familiar with starvation, but wasting is a severe form of malnutrition, often results on combined effects of inadequate diets, disease, and infection. And so a wasted child's immune system and its ability to actually absorb nutrients is so compromised that they rapidly lose weight and muscle. And then having just normal food is not a solution. And so that is why we have to turn to this solution, RUTF, ready-to-use therapy food, Plumpy Nut. It's highly nutritious peanut butter made here in the United States. There are 2 factories that make them. There's one in Georgia and there's one in Rhode Island. They're using peanuts from American farmers to make this product. And only about 1 in 4 children in the world who need access to this currently have access to it. And while you might think that RUTF is only needed in the worst humanitarian situations, which it is, it's also commonly just needed in situations that are constant. A constant situation of poverty, a constant situation of global malnutrition. And so this intervention, if you have a child who's severely malnourished, who is wasting, and has this intervention for 6 weeks, and with basic other health care, they have a 90% chance of survival, which is absolutely incredible. And what's also important about this intervention is that it's shelf stable. So it does not need a cold supply chain. And it also can be given in communities. You can get it from the health center, but you can bring a whole box home if you need it in order to complete the treatment. And this is, Americans are making this product.
Sean, I have seen this stuff. I mean, literally from Hadeda in Yemen or in Afghanistan, where a child is literally an hour or 2 away from dying. And you get this stuff in that child, and the next day it's like, holy mackerel. It's a miracle thing. It really is the coolest thing to see a child come back to life. It's exciting.
That's fantastic. Maybe, Bill, going to you and following up. We talked about, PEPFAR, and it seems like everything you do turns to gold here because we're going on to the Global Fund. And with the Bush administration, you also were a senior advisor to the Global Fund. The Global Fund is an international organization that addresses HIV, AIDS, malaria, and tuberculosis. And you were in the hot seat there. And the Global Fund has saved over 70 million lives in those 3 different areas around the world. Could you talk to us about the impact that the Global Fund has had, and also how the Global Fund has adapted and how it responded to the COVID crisis, and how it's possible that it could also help us with the Ebola crisis now?
Absolutely. So The Global Fund is also an American innovation. It only exists because of the United States. It exists because of President Bush and bipartisan support from Congress and the same coalition I described that helped to support and make PEPFAR a reality. And it's created in an American image. It's a public-private partnership. It's not, with all due respect, a UN agency, although the WFP is probably the least UN agency that there is in the United Nations, but it is a coalition that involves the private sector, including representatives of companies, civil society, and governments, all together working in unison to one goal, which is to rid the planet of these particular three major killer diseases, HIV, TB, and malaria. And it does so by pooling resources from around the world, from both public and private donors, in a very specific way. It doesn't just give out blank checks. It gives grants that reflect the input of similar coalitions of public-private partners on the ground who agree that certain interventions are what they need in a given country. And there's accountability and transparency for that funding. So they're supposed to hit specific targets, much like the Gavi model, as a matter of fact, to do specific things over a 3-year period or cycle. The United States is not responsible for all of that. We can give, according to our law, a maximum of 1/3 of the money at any given time, which means that any dollar the United States puts into the Global Fund leverages $2 from somebody else. It's a great bargain for the United States. And it complements what we do on a bilateral government basis, as well as the efforts of enormous numbers of charities and faith-based organizations and non-governmental organizations around the world who are investing their own dollars, often your dollars, alongside it. So it's a coalition of the willing, a coalition focused on accountability and results. And what's happened, as you noted, over time, is the fund has been very adaptable. So during COVID, it began to shift some of its funding to help invest in some of the tools that were most necessary at the time, based on the platform it had helped to build with PEPFAR and the President's Malaria Initiative, to help people who were coming in with respiratory illnesses, things like oxygen plants. You might take it for granted, I did, that every hospital has oxygen. That's not true in the developing world. So the fund began to use its power of purchase and distribution to help hospitals in places like Kenya, where I just was, produce oxygen, medical-grade oxygen, for the first time to keep people alive. And now under Ebola, also in that part of Congo and Uganda where Ebola is coming from, the reason we know about this outbreak and the reason we're able to do something about it as an international community is largely because of the investments of the United States, both on a bilateral basis, through the Global Fund, the healthcare clinics, the infrastructure of the cadre of medical workers, including community health workers, the tests that are out there, and in fact, because of the World Food Program. A lot of people don't know, except you, of course, that the World Food Program runs the largest humanitarian airlift and sea lift service in the world, and the reason we're getting samples out is because WFP planes are flying them out from Congo. That's all because the United States decided that this kind of investment was worth our while for our own security, for moral purposes, and because it matters to economic growth, agriculture, investment in things like critical minerals that you heard about on the last panel. So the fund is a great investment, Gavi is a great investment, and reflects the essential compassion and smart power sense of the American people.
And I understand as well that the Global Fund really stewards its resources, that it's very careful on how it's implemented and where those dollars go.
Correct. Very low overhead, which is also true of the World Food Program, as a matter of fact. And it does not spend on infrastructure. It does not have a network of country offices. It does not have a huge network of bureaucrats on the ground or partnerships where there's a large amount of overhead. It's very lean compared to many equivalent international programs.
Jenelle, Bill was talking about the public-private partnership, and I know that when we talk about impact, Merck for Mothers is a key program that has helped over 40 million women around the world, and so we really recognize that. As you look at those type of investments, though, can the private sector do it by itself, or why do we need the U.S. government to get involved, and how is that helpful in stimulating the market and reaching those people that need to be reached?
It's a really good question. I think as we're all hearing, these are all really complex issues. No one player can do it all, right? So the private sector is a key player. It can get us so far, but then you need the partnership of governments to ensure scalability and sustainability. You need, like with Merck for Mothers, we had gotten so far in reducing motherhood mortality, but unless we had the partnership, and here, obviously in the U.S., we have a big issue with motherhood mortality at birth during, in the South, is partnering with state, local, and national governments so that they are changing the policies and the funding, and also, most importantly, the knowledge transfer for the sustainability of these programs. I can say one of the programs we have in Botswana through the African Comprehensive HIV/AIDS Partnership, we came together with the Gates Foundation and the government of Botswana to lead a nationwide HIV treatment program in Africa. However, thanks to the U.S. government and the leadership of PEPFAR, that these learnings were able to take to scale, and then we were able to drive a response that has saved over 26 million lives. And that's something, right? Like that's real. And so we've also done that through Merck Through Mothers in Nigeria. And again, with the U.S. government and national governments coming together with public-private partnerships, those programs are still occurring now. And I think of it as I was a relay runner in track. It's passing the baton, right? And you may start here, then you may both hold that baton, and then you're going to pass it to that own government who's then going to sustain it and work together. And I think that's the future. And as Bill said, this is a part of American values and who we are as people. And it also helps our own economic prosperity. Because in many of these cases, we are manufacturing, building these vaccines. These are jobs, and they're happening right here in the U.S. So this partnership is crucial.
Thank you. Thank you. The fact that the impact is actually saving lives is so crucial. Bill, going back to you, recently, Malaria No More, the State Department, SC Johnson, and the Global Fund got together and talked about and are putting into place some aerial special sprays that keep mosquitoes away. As an organization that has delivered a lot of insecticide-treated mosquito nets, what is this new technology and how does this innovation help people around the world? And maybe even some people here who don't like mosquitoes either.
Well, I'm glad you asked, because I happen to have one. How about that? Maggie and I planned with the props. This is something called the Guardian from SC Johnson & Son, a great Wisconsin company, that in an area of 15 meters square will repel mosquitoes for 1 year. And next year, we think, thanks to this investment by the U.S. government and the Global Fund and the company, there will be a version that will repel mosquitoes for 2 years.
And it doesn't even buzz like those
lights.
Buzz.
It goes, absolutely. Yeah. Makes no noise. You just hang it on the wall, hang it from the ceiling. And the insecticide here that's impregnated in the mesh begins on a time-release basis just to emanate out into the atmosphere, and mosquitoes don't like it. So it's not a silver bullet, but it's something that in collaboration with other tools, including insecticide bed nets in some cases, malaria vaccines in other places, and adequate testing and treatment for those who do get sick, this, we believe, really can help turn the tide on malaria. And there are other innovations, many of them made in the United States, invented in the United States, in every aspect of malaria control, from vector control, as we call it, warding off or killing mosquitoes, to a new vaccine or two vaccines that are in the pipeline, to new drugs that are more effective than the ones we've got, and new tests that are more effective than the ones we've got, that for the first time, I think, is really together going to make it possible for us to eliminate malaria in our lifetimes. Mm-hmm. So people asking me if I'm optimistic, even though malaria kills about 650,000 people around the world, there are 260 million cases in a year. Most of those deaths, unfortunately, are moms and babies, and this intersects definitively with malnutrition, because a malnourished mom or child is more vulnerable to malaria, and a woman or child with malaria is more vulnerable to malnutrition. But these tools that we've got, as I say, many of them American-made, actually are answering all of the problems that malaria presents to us. And that, to me, is exactly the story that we're telling today, which is how American leadership is indispensable to changing the world for the better.
And this innovation fits in with the America First health policy of the current administration in promoting American products that help people around the world.
Exactly. So an American company doing the right thing around the world that both provides economic benefit here in the United States and saves lives around the world.
Maggie, you talked already about some of the innovations that you've demonstrated with the prenatal, postnatal vitamins, with the RUT ethanol. When you look at Eleanor Cook Foundation, when you look to the future in nutrition, what do you see as one of the new innovations that we should all know about?
Yeah, I would actually say we have the solutions right here. The innovation is actually the public-private partnerships. Because, like I said, 1 in 4 kids aren't receiving this when they need it. So we need to work, and the Eleanor Crook Foundation, along with other family philanthropies and private sector, are working on a public-private partnership specifically to ensure that these solutions can be delivered at large scale. Right now, when it comes to RUTF, because it's viewed as an emergency humanitarian situation, as you know too well from WFP, you're funding at 3 months at a time. And when it comes to producing this product, getting into the field, like if you only have a 3-month budget, you're not funding a lot of it. You're not keeping the surplus. And so actually having a steady streamline of funding dedicated for these interventions, and then also ensuring that there are the logistics, supply chains, the mappings to making sure that these interventions reach the ones who need it. And that starts with American innovation, American philanthropy, and the U.S. government all working together.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Jenelle, coming to you, we've heard in some of the earlier panels about AI and, in health and food. Where do we see AI, particularly in the pharmaceutical industry? How is it helping you develop either new drugs, new treatments, or new ways of approaching the needs in the world?
Yeah, we talk a lot about, and it's fantastic, AI is right now helping us identify the most important clinical trials and move from research to actually breakthroughs in new medicines and vaccines. But it's really much more than that in how it's helping us in the labs. It again goes back to access. I think as many of us know, these are very complex healthcare systems. And as an individual is navigating a complex healthcare system that may have HIV/AIDS, how do they get the right drug at the right time and navigating that? And how does the AI assist the healthcare professional that is working with that individual? So it's really exciting how we can use AI to shorten the time of making real impact from innovation to actually access. And as you were talking about, Bill, on malaria, we truly do believe we can go from controlling malaria to eliminating malaria. We have novel assets in our pipeline where we're looking at long-acting treatment and prevention. And so again, it's coming together, harnessing AI, public-private partnerships, amazing technology that we're hearing about now that we can make a global impact.
Terrific. David, you and I have both traveled throughout the Sahel, and climate conditions in some places just aren't real favorable to agriculture. How do you see innovations as helping that with things such as drought-resistant seeds or other activities or products that might help people in these very difficult areas?
Well, it's a multifaceted approach. For example, whether you're talking about Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, Chad, in these areas, we're using what I would call, 15th, 16th century approaches, and a lot of that doing half moons and zaids and things like that. But not complicate, but add to that better seeds and better fertilizers and things like that. It's going to be quite remarkable. And I also think, particularly with AI analysis of satellite imagery and to see what's coming and how do we prepare in advance. I know with the new technology that we were using AI, we could see what was about to happen. Of course, you got El Nino, yada, and that's a whole other story. What's happening in the next 24 months is very, very serious stuff. if you can see in advance and then you can prepare in advance, and the cost of reaction versus the cost of going in advance is substantially different, saves literally hundreds of millions of dollars when you do it right. And this is one of the areas I think with AI, we're going to be able to take advantage in so many multifaceted ways that's going to really improve conditions for a lot of people all over the world. But having said that, still in these very, very poverty-stricken areas, they're struggling now beyond anything we've seen. And with the cutbacks, it's devastating, the stunting, the wasting that's taking place. And unfortunately, the media is just not covering it. And it just breaks my heart. And so I think it's bright runway ahead of us, but we got to get there. And so many children are going to die in the meantime. And that's why I say don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. The way we've transitioned in the last couple of years is it's just catastrophic. Totally unnecessary. But anyway, don't let me get started on that.
No, well, thank you. And I appreciate your passion, because these are passionate issues. Maybe Jenelle, just as we come to the close here, tell us, if we were to come back, the U.S. is now 250 years old as a democracy, and there's a lot to celebrate, and we've heard a lot about the ingenuity. What gives you hope, and what do you hope that people here and our children would bring forward into the future?
I mean, we're the best country in the world. I mean, right? Like, we have dealt with challenges and bumps in the road, but it's us who, put on our chin straps. We come up with the best science, the best evidence base. We have the best worker. We can do this. And right now, I feel like we all have a responsibility. We're talking about preventable deaths by vaccines, preventable deaths by wasting, preventable deaths by needing new technologies here. We many times have the technologies, but we don't have the access. So what do I see? I see that we have a reduction in those preventable deaths, a meaningful reduction. We've made an impact on bending that curve of incidence of HIV. And we are bringing in the values that it doesn't matter your zip code or where you live. You have the food and the access to the medicines and vaccines that you need.
Thank you. Bill, going to you, maybe the same question. You've been involved in a bunch of innovations in health between the President's Emergency Program for AIDS Relief, the Global Fund and all. What do you see as new innovations coming down the line, and what are you looking for?
Well, I completely agree with Jenelle that we are a great country, and we should not be afraid to do great things. And we should be proud of the great things that we have already done together with the government, the private sector, faith-based community, NGOs. What's coming is an opportunity not to do things alone and not to do them forever, but to take some of these incredible new technologies that are being developed, like PlumpyNet, like Guardian, like the things that are in your pipeline, and jumpstart them so that they can be used at greater scale around the world. We don't have to pay for them forever, and we don't have to do it by ourselves. But we, in the next 5 years, in every aspect of global health, there is an American-made, American-invented intervention that if we together can invest just enough to get it over the hump and out broadly into the population where it's needed, we can solve hunger. We can solve childhood malnutrition. We can solve vaccine preventable diseases. We can end malaria. These are fights we should take on because we can win them. And we can win them because of what America does.
Thank you, Bill. Maggie, maybe finishing up with you on this one, can you tell us, you've done some innovations already, you've got some hope on how to move forward. What's the next step?
I think the next step, and I was actually just with Bill in Kenya with members of Congress, and we actually took them out into the field to see some of these solutions at work. And I think that's one of the most important things is we can sit here and talk to you, and you're going to talk to your members tomorrow and talk about these things. But I think it's really important for members to actually see the work that they're, stuck in DC talking to each other and then out and talking to their constituents, but actually seeing the work that Americans are producing in the field saving lives is invaluable. And so the Eleanor Crook Foundation, a lot of other foundations have been working more and more to get members out into the field to actually see these innovations at work in order for them to invest and realize that this is the good work that American people are doing around the world.
Great. Thank you very much. David, you and I have both gone on the Hill, and when I've been on the Hill, I keep asking them, what more can we do? And they say, bring more people in. Have more people come in to talk to people, to let them know that this is important to Americans. All the polling shows it, but sometimes they just don't hear it. So, David, tell the people here as we come to the end of the session why it's so important that they go down to D.C. now and what gives you hope.
So when I took the role in 2016, when Trump was elected in 2017, everyone thought there would be devastation on humanitarian and development aid and USAID. And we rolled up our sleeves. We brought the D's and the R's. We called it the miracle on Pennsylvania Avenue. I mean, it really was. We brought the White House and the Congress together, laid aside political differences, explained it in such a way that you could sell it to both sides. And it was remarkable, the success. The funding level just went up, 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 not just for WFP, but UNHCR, UNICEF, and the list goes on. And it made a difference when we were on television, on 60 Minutes, and all the different news networks back in the day. And now you got social media that can really, of course, social media is a cutting edge thing right now, right? Yes, good and bad. We're more divided at any time period. But when I look at this room, and I've been giving speeches all across America for the last few months, people are so tired of this division. And I think when a member of Congress sees you come to see them about doing something good, the power of helping hungry children, starving people, there's nothing more powerful in the history of the world, because we're made in the image of God that says we are to love our neighbor. And when you designed in that image, you yearn to do good for others. And when you go to Congress, appealing to that innate nature, whether it's a D or an R or a left or a right, we need to help these children. They're yearning for you to talk to them and give them a way and a hope, because the politics is just so depressing right now. And we can't let that stop the American dream, the heart of the American people, because we are the greatest nation on the face of the planet, and we are not going to turn back. I'm out there among the people, and I see it. The people are ready to rise above this division and be that shining city on the hill once again.
Thank you, David, and I appreciate you using the love thy neighbor. Being from a faith-based organization, that fits right in. I want to ask you all to give this panel one more round of applause, and then we're going to... All right. And I want to thank each and every one of you in the USGLC for bringing everyone together so that we can make some of these changes that you've heard about, some of the ingenuity, some of the innovations, and the impact that we've had to spread that around the world.